Okay, here we are at the beginning of my highway water flow. Now, I'll tell you something. My whole property line here is fixing to have 600 houses. I mean, literally backyard, 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 backyard. You know, it was inevitable. The area where I live is a high growth area. I make my money because it's a high growth area. But this kind of talks about maybe what you can do to, it's like somebody's dumping over there. What you can do to mitigate that. And I'd say probably Jeff Lawton was the man who probably gave me the best ideas. Let me digress back. So this is a driveway, real rutted up. There's no culvert over there, so water just gushes down, erodes the road. I'll have to deal with that at some point. But let's get to the reason we're here, which is the water flow. So there's a road. This is a road. Comes down to the culvert, goes down. We're getting the tornado damage here. Big, big, big ass juniper. Got uprooted. When I've got this area broken off, got a fence here, but what I'd love to do is build a dam across there, create a little pond here, and that would take all the subdivision runoff, put it into a settling pond here where everything soaks in the ground. Like I said, you can't control what happens upstream from you, but you can put in stuff to mitigate it, and that's kind of my plan. All right, I got a fence to hop. I'll be right back. Okay, I'm on the other side of the fence. You can see the tornado tree. A lot of slope down here, and then it V's back up. This was Stormageddon damage. I walked, I don't know, probably a week into our 2-week freeze in Texas, and I think it was 2020. I was walking through here, and it sounded like shotgun blasts going off. And it was all these big branches dying from the weight. But we got this big area here. You can see that the water spreads out, which is nice, but this is all at the bottom of my property. Had a fella on the other side of the highway. I call it Lake Dillard, but he literally just put concrete Lego blocks across this highway ravine, and I guess it saturated the water table underneath, and it never goes dry. It's pretty cool. I may stop and make a video of it. So this kind of shows you another thing where nature creates a dam. So kind of like my brush dam at the thicket over by my new pond. I mean, a log floated down. It's not a big log, caught up against some cedar trees, and then it caught leaves, and all of a sudden you're retaining water. You can see all the leaves it's catching. It just sends cleaner water downstream. So that's pretty cool. This area, it was probably a young oak tree engulfed by Mustang grapes, and the whole little guild had died, and I just pushed it into the ground. Same thing, we'll call this a mini brush dam. I've got another brush dam down here, so I figured if it didn't hold, it would end up going into that pile down there, but it actually held. You can see the water level. I mean, wherever the leaves are is high, how high the water, so it actually flowed over it, started damming it up. My gimbal just died, so I'm going freehand here. I'm not sure where I left off, but like I said, this was a little guild here that had died out. I just took my tractor, pushed it over, let it be. You can see a lot of rotting wood in there. Anyway, it hasn't moved down or pushed down. The water flow hasn't pushed it down, but if it does, I've got a staked brush dam down there. But you can just see the amount of the amount of leaves and beer bottles it captured. I'm gonna step back so you can see the full width of the flow. So yeah, it was probably, water had to go from here all the way up to there. I'd say that's 18 feet wide water flow I would have had to have here. Keep walking down, you can see where the water went around the brush dam, started coming down here and fell into this. This is natural, came with the property. Don't like it when the grass is tall, you can't see it, and if you're driving a tractor you could fall into this hole. But this is interesting. Probably 2 weeks ago I threw this one single cedar branch across here. That's all I did. See what it would do, and you can see it's already catching debris. So if the soil level fills up to this point, it has no choice but to fill this in, so this will heal itself. Just keep walking down, and a lot of highway traffic. So the thing about this whole water flow is, I would call this the dirtiest water. It's getting highway water. It's going to get, probably in 5 years, it'll get the water from 600 houses, maybe, I don't know. I didn't have a master plan on this. I just drilled some holes, stuck some cedar sticks in it. I put rocks on this side. I guess I was optimistic this would dam up and like the beaver dam, and water would be 2 foot high here and fall down, and I wanted to fall on the rocks. I'm not finding that to be true with brush dams. I think they filter water, but they don't hold water. I'm gonna have to see over time. And I guess beavers are mixing mud in with the sticks. I just literally laid the sticks down. But I've been kind of researching beaver dams and how they do it, because I'm not damming water with the brush dams. All right, we're gonna walk around an electric fence. Above the picture is the old feed store. It was part of this property, but the owner had sold it before I bought my property, so I didn't get it. So I got land on 3 sides of it. All right, so we're getting into a pretty big culvert. And the main reason is because this was a road going up to my shop. I'll pan into it. Look, golf balls. Golf balls. Okay, so looking left, should be able to make out the shop building where you went to. I call it this. It's a shop for me, but that's where you went and got your hay loaded up. So it's got 2 culverts. I showed you one further down. This is the other culvert. Anyway, so you can see where nothing's growing over the culvert. This is a fix I need to do when I repaired some concrete. I actually dumped it in here, but the culvert ended here and it was forming a big cavity, so I threw some rocks and brick in here. Actually, you know what, this was a culvert's over there, but my goalie's here. I don't remember if it had a break in it, but I'm gonna see if I can get to this culvert, because it is wallowed out a big hole. Oh, let's go back here. Octagon. So we're getting to the end of our tour. You can see the culvert. I'm pretty sure I could stand into the hole that it made and probably not reach the top of the culvert, so I do need to address this. It says right on the property line. Anyway, water flows up into that big 6-foot culvert that goes across the highway. So as you can see, every bit of water I can save, if I don't save it, it's going across the highway. Okay, so I have one more water flow, and it's the one I'm probably the most proud of, and it's the one that Zach Weiss designed and implemented. And it created, it It stopped the flooding of my shop, created a terrace system to plant trees. Anyway, I'm gonna walk over to it. I'll see you in a minute.